Well, hello, all you lovely people, and welcome back to my little fan fun series here. If you're a bit late to the party and you don't know what this series is, you've never seen it before, you didn't see the previous two versions of it, feel free to watch those videos or follow the link in the description to the DeviantArt journal, where you can both learn more information and also possibly offer up some of your spicy characters to sacrifice to this series, potentially. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's just get right into this. What I'm doing today for the fan fun is world AUs, which is basically where people can give me their characters, they give me a world or a species to put them in, and I either put them into one of my worlds, into one of like my species headcanons for those worlds, whatever it is, and I just have some fun imagining what they would look like in one of my worlds. Based on whatever rules that world has, whatever story that world has, whatever species it has, whatever it may be, yada yada yada. We have 3 lovely characters that were sacrificed today for it, so now you're all gonna hear about my thought process when designing AUs for these characters, as well as learn some useless information about some of my stories and worlds that you don't care about. So our first victim here, sacrificed to us, was given to me by Pythoness, one of my lovely patrons, or Pythony on DA, because Pythoness was taken on DeviantArt. But Pyth gave me her character Zipporah, which is how I believe you pronounce it. I hope that's correct, or I'm gonna embarrass myself. Who is a vampire character who's meant to be a little bit more on the traditional evil vampire side kind of thing. But she wanted me to turn Zipporah into my Heaven's Proxies vampires. Now, a little context to that. The Heaven's Proxies is my big, huge fantasy story, which is actually the redone, revamped version of an old fantasy story I had. That was a lot more generic and less fun and interesting and creative. So it's a revamp of that. But it's my big fantasy world with a lot of different elements and a lot of different species, and in that world my vampires aren't actually your traditional humans with pointy teeth that drink blood. They actually are based very heavily on just real life vampire bats, to where they are small, they are friendly, they are cute, they're very family oriented, very social, and they're practically harmless. However, the world in general actually has a misinformed opinion on them, where they think that they are bloodthirsty monsters. So that's a whole other thing, but you know. So my bat people are very cute and friendly. So she wanted me to turn her more traditionally evil vampire girl into a cute, friendly family bat creature. So I had some fun with it, especially because I didn't want her to lose her personality. So I kept her in a pose and expression that implies that she might be a little bit more ornery and less friendly than some of the other bats around. She's probably jaded from all the stories and all the stereotypes, perhaps. But the one thing Pyth did ask me to keep with her design was to keep her curly, poofy hair. Obviously, bats in my world, while I don't have a whole lot of pictures of them, if you look on DeviantArt, there are a few pictures of bats and a character I have that is a bat, and they have straighter hair and fur, whatever you want to call it. However, in real life, cats and dogs, among other mammals, actually there's a genetic mutation they can have where they can basically have curly fur or hair, and it means the same thing for humans too, and all that kind of thing. So I thought it would be out of the realm of reality to have her be basically a recessive gene where she just has really curly, coarse fur hair, whatever you want to call it. She's also based on the very common version of the bat. There are some subspecies, but she's the common version, which is just brown and lives in woods and things like that, to keep it simple and match her colors and her hair color and all that. But it was very fun to do, and to turn a little traditional vampire into a more cute and friendly, harmless vampire. This next character was named Marilla and was given to me by Ravenoid. This one was interesting because Ravenoid asked me to also put this character in Heaven's Proxies, and Heaven's Proxies dragons are interesting when it comes to a species because they aren't technically just a normal species. In the Heaven's Proxies, the whole context of dragons is that the first original 4 dragons used to be 4 demigods until the most 2 powerful gods, technically, Sun and Moon, decided that it was just not fair, it was not reasonable to have these creatures with godlike powers just walking around the world with mortals. It wasn't balanced, it wasn't fair, and they could do a lot of bad things with those powers, so they made a rule from then on that all demigods would be basically cursed to become beasts with very restrictive territory. And because the 4 of them actually lived for a very long time among mortals, they actually had a lot of children, so the children actually got tied into that curse as well, because they had magical blood basically tied into them, and some of them could also do magic and things like that. So basically the rule is that if you have any dragon blood in you at all, you become a dragon. In my world, the descendants of the first 4 dragons can actually have human forms, and they can go wherever they want, so they can actually crossbreed with a lot of different species. However, in my world, the law is weird. It's where it's like there is no such thing as half dragon, half blank. You either are a dragon or aren't a dragon, because it is essentially a curse, not just a genetic thing, so to speak. However, the original 4 dragons all dragons are based on are extremely varying in the kinds of dragons they are and the kinds of appearances they have, which posed this to be very interesting. There's a lot of dragon characters whom put into Heaven's Proxies probably wouldn't change very much, including her. In terms of coloration especially, there's not really much that you'd really have to change in most cases. But this was a very interesting challenge, and I had a lot of fun doing this one. The only real main things that I consciously addressed was, for one thing, how to make her bipedal in a way that still made her look like a beast, because in my world, most of the dragons are quadrupeds. However, I decided for her, I would make her bipedal by simply making her have kind of heavy relations to Nubis, who is my dragon of air, and she is based she's a bird dragon essentially. So in a way, this character now in Marilla has the ability to stand on her hind legs, although she probably walks on 4s quite a lot. You kind of almost think of it like a bear being able to stand back up, like stand straight up on their hind legs kind of thing. I also gave her pointy, needly teeth, also like Nubis, just to keep that connection similar there and consistent throughout the design. The other 2 connections that I kind of went with heavily for her design was connections to Silva, who is my Earth one, who's based a lot on she's a mammal-like dragon, and then Sinis, who is he's basically the I'm going to burn down your village kind of Western dragon sort of thing, which is where, of course, she gets the giant bat-like wings and the more lizard-like appearance and that kind of stuff. But because in the original reference she actually had a little bit of fur on her chest, I basically expanded that to resemble a little bit Silva's mane that she has, because she has a huge mane of fur. Marilla doesn't get as voluptuous of a mane, but I've just felt like emphasizing that would be very fun and tie into, and it's also why I gave her these kind of lion-like paws, because Silva also has lion-like paws and all that stuff. It also ties into why her ears are shaped the way they are. It was just very fun. The only other thing that I felt like I had to change just because of how my world is constructed was the pattern of her markings. While I kept the general placement of her markings, I made them look a bit more natural and less cartoony, but I could not give her direct, like, crescent moon shaped markings like she had in the original design, simply because dragons in my world just wouldn't have such perfectly shaped designs on their skin and stuff like that. I probably could have made it a little bit better here, like make it vaguely resemble the shape of a moon or a star or something like that. but at the time I just knew that I couldn't keep it as perfectly shaped as it was on the original reference. However, other than that, I tried to keep pretty much all of her colors and the general gist of her design in there while making her look a little bit more animal-like than human-like like her original one. But this one was a really, really fun one to do, and it was an interesting thought experiment for me with My World's Dragons, thinking about what actually defines My World's Dragons and what is actually viable to include. This next one was not given an AU in the Heavens Proxies world, but is instead actually it was a character given to me by Sunstar of the North, of their character Ellen, and they actually asked me to put Ellen into my Naturia world. Naturia, which a lot of people on YouTube might not know, is basically my children's cartoon world that I have, where all the characters are very cartoony. And the style of Naturia is a lot different than my actual normal style. It's a lot more cartoony and animation friendly kind of thing. So it was a very interesting one to play around with. The character they gave me, the one thing they asked to keep was that she stay very, very thin, because it's an important part of her character. So it was a very interesting one to play with. The reference also didn't have any colors in it, and according to Sunstar, she's pretty much black and white anyway. So in Naturia, all characters are based on some kind of element in nature. The main three characters in Naturia are Shamrock, Leaf, and Rock. So all the characters in terms of their names and some of the roles in the world and things are based on actual things in nature. So for her, I thought since she wanted to keep her thin, I thought it would be very interesting to make her a birch tree, because it would make her black and white and it would make her look long and thin. And then I also had the thought of making her a leafless birch tree. Leafless just basically meaning in the Naturia world, a leaf is technically the child of a tree, and they will eventually grow up to become a tree kind of thing. It's like evolution in Pokemon or something like that. I don't even know. That'd actually be very fun, turning my Naturia characters into Pokemon. Anyway, that's off topic. So I had a lot of fun playing around with it, and that's how I kept her being bald, was I just she has no leaves, so she has no hair, which would be leaves, quote unquote. And that kind of thing. So she's a bare birch tree. And I had a lot of fun just playing with colors and playing with something simpler. I also did exaggerate her anatomy a lot, because in Naturia the anatomy is a lot more cartoony and a lot more cartoonish proportions, stuff like that. So I really actually exaggerated how skinny she was around the waist. I saw that she had very bony hips, so I actually exaggerated those. And it was a very fun one and a lot different than the other two. And I had a lot of fun. I don't know why it was so interesting, but it was. I love Heavens Proxies. Heavens Proxies is near and dear to my heart, but you know who's also near and dear to my heart? Why, those lovely, lovely patrons, that's who. Like my $2 Tier Plus patron, whom I also love too. Thank you for your support. But how could I leave without giving high fives to Isabel GD, Shadow Cat Inc., Mick, and Starma? Oh, but I have not forgotten whose power levels will and forever will be over $9. Melina Thompson, Silver Rose, Gun Moon, Twisted Disaster, Laurenth, Jago, Fema, Petty Prince, and Miss Mercutio. Oh, did it feel like we were missing some people? Well, that might be because I recently formed a Cool Kids Club for $25. And such members of the Cool Kids Club do include Pythoness, who was also featured in this video, the lovely Pythoness, everybody. But who could forget the magnificent, glorious Rose? There she is, everybody. Also a member of the Cool Kids Club. We have Absolute Trap in the Cool Kids Club. Quite a circumstance. Oh, but who's that down the hallway? It's Skyek 2, all the way from Australia, everybody. And last but certainly not least in our Cool Kids Club, we have Neko Sister. The one and the only Neko Sister, of course. Anyway, I thank you all so much for the support, patrons and viewers alike, and I will see you in the next video, whatever it may be. Zodiac, out.